Hello, my friends, and welcome to a replay episode of Unlimited. Today, we are talking about how to cultivate self-love. This is a replay of Season 1's episode, Relearning Self-Love, but with an updated intro. I decided to replay this episode right now, partly because we can't talk about this topic enough in a society that conditions us to disconnect from ourselves. And in this time of transition, especially for parents with kids heading back to school, this is a great time to make some space to check in with yourself and how you express love for yourself. This topic is near and dear to me because my mother used to ask me, "What's most loving for Valerie?" And I really hated that question because I didn't know how to even start asking it, let alone how to answer it. It took a lot of peeling away layers of programming over many years before I could even engage that ongoing question. And I say ongoing because the answer isn't static. As life happens and I change, so does the answer to what is most loving for me. I also want you to know that there's nothing wrong with you if you struggle with this question. I used to think that something must be wrong with me, that I didn't know how to answer it, and the thing is that our society has conflated self-love and self-care because the norms of our society depend on and perpetuate our disconnection from ourselves. So it's naturally difficult to even think to ask that question, let alone ask it, let alone answer it. Not to mention, self-care disconnected from self-love has fueled a booming economy of fix-you products and services. This is why self-care ends up feeling like pressure or one more thing to do because it's externally put upon us versus stemming from a foundation of love for ourselves. When something like self-care is a should, we end up trying to use care for ourselves that someone else told us works or that has been marketed to us as what will fix us versus what is actually loving for us and taking the space and the time to really tap into that and know that. Self-care truly cares for us when we've cultivated a foundation for it. That's not to say that real self-care doesn't feel uncomfortable, awkward, or hard in this society when we are conditioned not to care for ourselves, really, not to love ourselves, really, because we're disconnected. It often does feel uncomfortable, awkward, or hard, just like most new things do. So that idea that like when it's the right thing, you'll know and it'll feel right. Well, sometimes that happens, but sometimes it feels really awkward and hard and uncomfortable. And when you're relearning love for yourself, especially when that love and that care for yourself, like how you express love for yourself, looks different than what you've been told it's supposed to look like, that can be additionally awkward, uncomfortable, and hard. And just like any relationship, the way you express love may be different at different times. So it's not going to stay static. Again, it's going to be dynamic. Speaking of relationships, this work is also critical because your relationship with you is the foundation for your relationship with everyone and everything in your life. It impacts your capacity to give and your openness to receive. And so this isn't just self-caring better, right? This is loving yourself, your relationship, not just the trappings of it, but the foundation of it. It's also important to note that self-care is not a replacement for community care. And I do touch on this in this episode, but we are deeply lacking community care in this society. And we need both self-care and self-love. Even though we're constantly fed like this barrage of self-care without the community care component. It's like we're trying to self-care away our need for community care, which again feeds into the stuff I mentioned earlier about this is how we perpetuate the norms in our society. So the thing is, self-love sets the foundation for our ability to give ourselves care, for that self-care piece, and to create, contribute to, and receive from our communities. Of course, our communities also impact our sense of self. And so the quality of our communities, the dynamics of our communities also impact our relationship with ourself. which means that it's that much more important for us to really have a sense of ourselves and to do that work and to give ourselves probably more space than we would have to otherwise to really tap into that so that we can cultivate those communities that really support our care and our love for ourselves. One example I'd like to give before we go on to the episode is that I had a client recently dealing with an extremely stressful situation, and they told me that they knew they should be doing a better job of self-care, especially right now, but it was so hard. And my response to that is that it makes sense it would be hard, not just because they were out of practice with self-care and developing that foundation of self-love, but also because this is when community care is really needed. When you're being chased by a bear, you're not going to stop to meditate or get a massage. This is when you need your community to help protect you and care for you. Unfortunately, most of us don't have that in this society. So loving ourselves may mean honoring the need to run and hide or avoid something for a time, and then finding and leaning on support people, and then building into the community that we know we need. It is not, however, beating ourselves up for not self-caring better. So just want to be really clear on that. If you find yourself struggling with the question of what is most loving for you in any given situation, or even just in general, answering it or even asking it like I was, my hope is that this episode will help you gain clarity on how to begin engaging loving yourself now wherever you're at with that. Some of what I cover in this episode includes the difference between self-love and self-care, identifying your level of self-love, noticing if and how you express love to yourself, ways to build self-confidence through love, and preventing self-love sabotage. If you are looking for a professional to add to your support team to help you create a life that is more lovingly aligned, reach out. Grab a spot on my calendar for an exploration call. I would love to speak with you. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Hey there, I'm Valerie Friedlander, Certified Life Business Alignment Coach, and this is Unlimited. This podcast bridges the individual and the societal, scientific and spiritual, positive and negative, nerdy and no, there's just a lot of nerdy. Come on board and let's unlock a life that's as badass as you are. All right, so self-love and self-care often get lumped together, and they aren't the same thing, though they are very similar. Self-care really falls under self-love. We do things to care for ourselves because of a love that we have for ourselves or that we are cultivating within ourselves. Love is an interesting word because it's used for so many different things. It's important that we drill down to what does it mean to love ourselves, because it's something that gets thrown around. And anytime we throw words around, there's a lot of assumptions that go into them. And when we make assumptions, then we often don't give them the attention that they may need from us, or that we may need to give them, or approach them in a way that's actually supportive instead of just like the subconscious brain doing what it does, which often reinforces patterns that aren't necessarily the ones that are serving us. I would like to invite you to explore a little bit about what does it mean to love you? If you were to scale that, if you were to go like on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do I love myself? 1 being not at all and 10 being 100%, like totally love myself. What would you put yourself at? How much do you feel like you have love for you? And this is not the same thing as being selfish, right? Self-love and selfishness are two different things. And I've often heard like in the mommy spaces of like self-care isn't selfish, and these reminders that to take time for ourselves is important, because oftentimes we get triggered with this sense of need from other people, especially small people who have all the needs. Like I can't even tell you how many times my especially 6-year-old will come in and be like, pay attention. When can we play? When can we play? And even when we do play, it's never enough. Like there's never enough playing. right? I mean, that's normal for a young person. If I don't have healthy boundaries for myself, oftentimes my anger will tell me that I need to set a boundary. And that's not necessarily how I want to show up with my kids. So self-love can look like giving yourself space to have for you, right? So that you can fill your cup. So anyway, take a look at what does it mean to love yourself, or what ways do you use to express love for yourself? And if you look at that scale of, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you feel like you love yourself? Then the next scale would be on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not at all and 10 being 100%. How much do you feel like you show yourself that love? And where do you show it? How do you show it? Where, if you say you look at that scale and go, okay, it's a 6. I show myself love at a 6. Then what would it look like to make that a 7? What would you need to do to show yourself self-love at a 7 instead of a 6? I like using scales for things like this because oftentimes we hold ourselves up to a standard that isn't realistic. And by doing that, we prevent ourselves from actually making forward movement towards the things that we want. So if you've acknowledged, okay, self-love, I love myself. I do. I think I'm amazing. I think I'm wonderful. I think I'm worthy and deserving. Maybe that's a conscious thought and the subconscious hasn't quite caught up with the conscious. So the behaviors don't necessarily reflect what you consciously know to be true. And this is something that comes up a lot with clients when we're doing work together of like, I know this consciously, but I'm not doing it. How do I get myself to actually be that way instead of just knowing it? Like my head and my heart aren't connecting. And part of that is just behaviors, it's actions, it's doing the things that reinforce the belief that you want to be cultivating so that your subconscious can catch up to your conscious thought. This is something that a lot of times people will talk about being acting as if. And there's a slight difference when it comes to acting as if with just saying, I'm going to pretend that I feel this way and eventually it'll be true. It's a holistic picture. And I've talked about this before of acknowledging the thought, the feeling, and the action in a holistic sense. So it's not just, I don't feel this way, so I'm going to pretend I feel this way and do this thing that I've been told to do or that was recommended to me to do. And maybe it is a good recommendation or a helpful recommendation. Try and stay away from these good, bad things, but oh my gosh, it's such a part of our cultural language. Anyway, maybe that's helpful. But when you can connect in a holistic picture, you're more likely to pick an action that's actually going to help you cultivate in the subconscious space what you want to feel like, because you are thinking it as you're doing it. And even though the feeling may not have caught up yet because that trigger is in the subconscious area, it will eventually catch up because you know the thought that you're cultivating and you're taking the action that aligns with that. So if I felt this way, what would I do, right? If I knew consciously, I know I love myself. I know I'm worthy of time and of energy and attention. I know this. If I knew this, if that was the thought when something happens, maybe I'm feeling stressed or angry, and I know that I deserve time for myself, then I would feel calm and I would set a timer for 15 minutes to meditate and allow my kids to be on the TV or playing a video game and just let them know, mommy's taking some time, you're going to do this, and actually give myself the space for that. So that's just an example. But when you can tie them together, instead of just the thinking of, well, I should meditate. I don't feel like it, but I should give myself some space to sit quietly. Or I should journal. I don't feel like it, but I know that that's a helpful thing to do. And that's what, when you love yourself and you value yourself, you give yourself that space to journal. So I'm going to do that because that's what I was told to do, right? Or whatever. Anyway, you notice all the shoulds. So it's important that we take the shoulds out and actually look at what's going on in that whole picture of what is the thought that I'm having. I'm having this, I don't have any space and I have to earn that space. So let's follow the chain. I don't have any space. I have to earn the space for myself because I don't just naturally deserve it. And obviously that is a pulling away from the self-love, right? You have to earn love. And that is a common thought that a lot of us have picked up. I have to earn love. I have to earn the space for myself. If I don't do enough for other people, then I don't deserve something for me, which consciously we've been told enough times that isn't true, right? Like you can't pour from an empty cup. So if you have to earn love or attention or space or time or any of those things that actually take care of you, if you have to earn that, but you are completely depleted, what do? It doesn't make sense. It's not logical, right? Not that any of this is logical. So taking that awareness and going, okay, well, I have to earn this. I have to work hard to have it. And I can never work hard enough to have it because my 6-year-old always wants more, or there's always something else to do in the house, or my business always needs attention. There's always social media posts or whatever it is. Then I feel stressed. I feel overwhelmed, whatever those feelings are. And then I work harder. I push myself harder because I don't feel like I'm good enough. You see the cycle there. That's reaffirming then that I don't deserve it because there's nothing is ever enough. So taking it out of that and going, okay, well, how do I want to feel? I want to feel calm. I want to feel like there is enough. I want to feel abundant, right? That's what it means to feel enough, to feel abundant. If I feel abundant, then I am full enough to pour out. What do I need to believe to feel calm and abundant? I need to believe that I have space and that I deserve to use it. If that's true, then I would allocate time for myself. So that's just some of the thinking around that self-love. But I love the scaling questions because they help you create a stair step towards that. So maybe you would ideally like an hour for you. And right now, with everybody on top of us, with work and balancing that with kids and homeschooling or whatever it is that you're navigating right now, maybe it's just attention on what's going on in the world. Whatever that looks like, maybe an hour isn't reasonable. So if you think about, well, how much am I giving myself time and space for self-love on a scale of 1 to 10? Right now, I'm not giving myself any. I'm at a 0. Okay, well, what would a 1 look like? A 1 would look like I give myself an extra 5 minutes every time I need to use the bathroom to take a deep breath and feel my feet on the floor. That's a 1. Okay, great. What would it take to do that? What do you need to be able to give yourself that space? Maybe it's a Post-it note on your mirror. So when you're washing your hands, instead of immediately leaving the bathroom, you pause and you take that couple extra minutes. Maybe it's not even 5 minutes. Maybe it's 2 minutes. That's a 1. Once you're doing that, then you can move to a 2. What does a 2 look like? How is that going? And you may find that it naturally moves. Like as you're doing that you naturally start giving yourself more space because you've taught yourself that you can have it. You've taught yourself that it is possible. So you're able to do that more. And that's another piece of self-love, making a commitment to yourself and sticking with it. It's actually saying, I'm going to do this and then doing it, because that tells you that you're worth honoring promises to. So it's another little way of nudging your brain and saying you're worth this time. You're worth making a commitment to and honoring it. And when you don't do that, it's like poking holes in your confidence, poking holes in your awareness that you are deserving of love and that you're worthy of love. So that's another reason why a scaling question can be helpful, is so that you don't try and make a commitment to yourself that you aren't going to be able to keep, and thereby poke holes in your relationship with yourself. because that's the foundation for everything. Your relationship with yourself is reflected in every other relationship that you have, whether it is with another person or whether it is with your work or your home space. Everything reflects back to the relationship that you have with yourself. So giving yourself a commitment that is reasonable, that you can actually act on, and then following through with that commitment. Doing that starts to build on itself because you start to build that confidence. You start to build your belief in yourself, your caring about yourself, and your sense that you're able to do things. And also that you can make commitments to yourself and give yourself space, and it is okay, right? Like, will everything fall apart? Will the house and everyone just turn into chaos without you there for 5 minutes? Probably not. But even if it does, it will bolster your ability and your awareness and your ability to handle whatever it is that comes your way, right? So making it something that you can actually follow through on and really being honest with yourself and clear with yourself about what you can do. Giving yourself this kind of space is super important during times of stress because that overwhelm will pull at our attention. Our brains are wired for survival on a very basic level, and that will take over. So when we experience stress, we are naturally drawn to focus on the pain and the problem, but we can't build from that space. So if you want to build, if you want to grow forward, then it's really important to make sure that you are taking that step back and looking at what you want to create. I've talked about planning previously, and the idea of making a plan, there's value in looking at the past and understanding the past because it helps us know where healing is needed or what needs to be released. But it's not where change resides. What you need next is, where are you right now? What's going on right now? And to honor the experience that you're having in the now, regardless of where it came from or why it's there, especially if you've already done healing work around that. A lot of times when people come to work with me, they've already done a lot of healing and they're kind of going, why am I still doing the same things? Like, I've done work around this. I've already addressed these things. I know why they're there, but I'm not doing something different. And I've been there. That was a huge thing for me, and actually how I ended up finding coaching in the first place. It's knowing where you are. What are the dynamics of what's going on right now for you? Honoring that space, not fighting it or denying it or anything like that, but going, okay, this is what is for me right now. And then looking at, where do I want to go? Clarifying where you want to go, what you want, what's important, who do you want to be? And when you can do that, then creating those achievable, actionable steps that allow you to move forward toward that in an aligned way. And when I say in an aligned way, what I mean is in a way that moves you towards that in the now. So not just taking action that hopefully the outcome will produce the thing you want, but to be in that space of self-love, be in that space of your values, be in that space of the experience of life that you want as you take action and move forward, so that it's not as important about what happens later. It's, you are always building in the direction and building the person that you want to be. So self-love is a key component of that. It's important that we give space and recognize when we're depleted. And there's a lot that's depleting us right now. So to explore a little bit about the different areas that can impact our energy and places where we can give ourselves love, because there are lots of ways that you can approach love, and it really depends on what area you feel depleted in. If you've ever read the 5 love languages, then you know that there are different ways that people receive love. One of the things that I look at is, when it comes to love languages, a lot of times what stands out as missing and what you may feel is a primary for you can change based on what you feel a lack in. So there may be an underlying love language for you that you tend to gravitate towards because it was something that was lacking when you were growing up, perhaps. But if you find that filled and another area missing, that is the area that needs the attention. So I would put forward the idea that it's not something that's fixed, that it does change depending on what's going on. And I'll dig into that another time. But within that, recognizing that what is self-love for you may be different at different times, or what needs nurturing may be different at different times. And there are a few areas that are impacted by our energy. One is mental. So self-love in a mental space can be giving yourself a clear plan of action. Something simple, something specific, again, something that is achievable, that you know that you can complete to support that sense of caring for yourself and accomplishment and commitment to you. So your confidence is supported. But when it's a clear plan, not a vague plan, but a clear plan, it helps reduce some of the mental clutter. Actually completing tasks can be really helpful, especially in times that feel chaotic around you, like right now. So if it feels chaotic, giving yourself some task that has a very clear beginning, middle, and end that you can accomplish and have that sense of accomplishment by completing it gives you a feeling of inner control. Like even when everything outside of yourself feels crazy, at least you know that you have control over you and what you do and what you create. So that may actually tie into another way of loving yourself, which is allowing yourself to be creative and express yourself in some way. Focus time. This is really hard if you're like me and you have kids at home, but having time to really focus on one thing and not be multitasking can really help with that sense of mental load, and is a wonderful way to care for you, to find some way. And even if it means after the kids have gone to bed, that you give yourself 15 minutes to focus on you in some way. Maybe it's journaling, maybe it's pulling oracle cards, maybe it is moving your body, whatever it is, giving yourself that space to focus. Also, one that ties a little bit with an emotional level is feedback. Getting real tangible feedback instead of getting stuck in your head imagining things. So if you notice that you're starting to make assumptions about things, maybe you're projecting ideas of, oh, I think that this person thinks this. When we get into the I think they think that I think that they think that, oh my God, it's a lot. So actually asking questions to get real solid feedback and information is important. Also, taking time to collect maybe a file of compliments. So if you've gotten cards, if you've gotten testimonials for how awesome what you've done is, keep a file where you can go back and look at those things and remember that other people think you're amazing and you are deserving of thinking that you are also amazing, to remind yourself of the cool things that you've done. And you may also find that it's helpful to create your own thing. One of the things I love to do in a new year is reflect on the cool things that I've done in the past year and the things that I've accomplished, small things to big things. And so keeping that in a file to be able to reflect on, oh, I look at the cool things that I've done. That ties in again to that emotional space. Another key component of emotional self-love is honoring your feelings. When you are having a feeling, identifying that feeling, calling it out, saying, I feel sad right now, and honoring what's going on that's creating that sadness. So identifying the feeling and giving that feeling space is a self-love, because your feelings are real. They may not be based in external reality. They're not based in external reality, but they are based in the way you're experiencing something in your life. So giving yourself space to have that feeling, to honor that feeling and the existence of that feeling, and then processing that feeling however you need to. And maybe it's a joy. Maybe it's not just a sad feeling. Maybe it's a joyful feeling, and you want to share that with someone else, or express that, or sing that, or dance that. Like, then that's moving into that physical. So a lot of these will overlap, as you may have noticed. But one thing you can use if you're not sure what is helpful for you when you're processing feelings, especially like the stressful feelings, the feelings that pull you down, is use the stress languages quiz that I have. And I'll put a link to that. I also did a podcast episode that talks all about the stress languages. So going through that and seeing what would help you best process the feelings that you're having. Physical self-love can look like moving your body. Maybe it's a dance party, right? Maybe it's stretching. Maybe it's yoga, moving in a way that feels expressive and open and expansive. Getting enough sleep. This is a hard one, especially when we're all on top of each other. And as I mentioned, like taking that time after the kids are asleep for you. Sleep can be difficult, but what is it that you need that will help you focus and function best? Too much sleep can also be a drain as well. So just having a sense of the sleep that you need, noticing your posture and how you're holding your body and what that's saying to your brain, because your body and your brain talk to each other. So if you're always sitting hunched over and pulled in, your body is telling your brain that you're in defensive mode, and your brain is more likely to be looking for the things to defend yourself against. Whereas when your shoulders are back and you're more open, then you tell your brain that you are safe, that you are able to be expansive. On a spiritual level, honoring commitments to yourself, as I mentioned before, is a big one. And honoring your spirit, honoring who you are and that you are valuable. Giving yourself space for some sort of spiritual practice. Maybe it's prayer, maybe it's meditation, maybe it's journaling, whatever that looks like for you. And then giving yourself space for a sense of purpose and honoring your values. So what is your purpose in this relationship? What is your purpose in this activity? What is your purpose in this time? Giving yourself that space and sense to connect with what's important to you, and then honoring those values and honoring that purpose. Having a sense of purpose can also be really important in setting boundaries with other people. What is your purpose in the relationship? And asking yourself that question can help you identify where your energy is going or how you might realign your energy in an interaction. So that ties into that social component of setting boundaries with people, but also making sure that you have enough people around you where you're connecting with other like-minded people who have a similar focus in some area of life, be it business or child raising or gaming, interesting books, whatever it is, interesting things where you can be excited together. And that you are honoring the amount of connection that you need. So while we may not be able to be in person together, to know I have the bandwidth for this much Zooming, I'm going to make sure that I give some of that space to connecting with other people. Maybe you don't want to be on social media, but I would really like to cultivate my ability to have a phone call, which I haven't been as used to doing. So letting the people that are important to you know, hey, I'm going to pull away from social right now, but I would love to stay in touch. Let's text. Let's have real phone calls, which is something that came up with a client of mine recently. So being able to honor the amount of social needs that you have and connect with people who are important to you, who you can feel filled up by, and that you can in turn fill up their cup. And finally, your environment. Your environment is another space of self-love. Being able to clear your space. This is something that I did recently. I actually did a lot of decluttering. I got on a roll and just got rid of a whole bunch of stuff, including emails. I just went through and cleared out my email box. Email is just, it's a thing for me. Anyway, clearing out my email box is another way of decluttering because it's a space that I occupy. So every time I go in there and I see all these unread emails, it feels heavy. So self-love for me was allowing myself to let go of the things that I didn't need and haven't needed and turn those things off or release those things and then honor my aesthetic needs. So hanging up some pictures or some phrases that help bring me joy and help me connect to the person that I want to be and stimulate my senses in a way that is enlivening. So, and maybe that is essential oils. Whatever it is for you to give yourself that environment that stimulates your senses in a way that feels loving and enlivening and supportive, or reducing the amount of stimulation that you have in your environment. I know that with kids at home, the noise level of stimulation can be a little much for me right now. And so giving myself some quiet space to really appreciate when it is quiet. I got some noise canceling headphones for Christmas. So that's been huge in being able to give myself some space to be less in noise. So all these different areas where you can love on yourself, where you can tell yourself in tangible ways that you matter, that you are deserving of attention and of care. Those are all ways that you can tell yourself that you love you. And again, that gets reflected in every other relationship. When you love yourself, you are then able to give more love to other people and other things in your life, the things that are important and the things that you want to pour into. You are also more able to receive love, because when you don't believe that you are deserving of love, you will actively block your reception of love from other people. And I don't think any of you want to do that. So take some of these things, and I'd love to know what resonates for you. If there's one of these areas that you feel like, yes, that's something that I want to do, a little action step. If you want a little accountability of somebody else knowing that you are going to lean into something, please feel free to send me a message, whether it's by email or on Instagram or somewhere, just letting me know what action that you want to take to start reminding yourself that you are deserving of love. It is so important during a time where things feel out of control and crazy around us that we give ourselves that space of care so that we can show up to everything that's happening and be there for those people that are important to us, like our little ones who will be and are being affected by the energy of the things that are happening around us, and show up in a way that supports their ability to feel loved and be loved. And the more we can spread that sense, I would say the better, because we sure could use a little bit more love in the world. I appreciate you being here. Talk to y'all next time. Thanks for listening. I so appreciate you being here. If you got something out of today's episode, please share it. Leave me a review, take a screenshot, and post it on social with a shout out to me. Send it to a friend, or, all of the above. Want to hang out more? Join me on Instagram. Or better yet, get on my mailing list to make sure you don't miss out on anything. And remember, your possibilities are as unlimited as you are. Allow yourself to shine, my friend. The world needs your light. See you next time.